Welcome to the Dudeology Show, where real dudes discuss cool stories, awesome stuff, and killer gear. We're your hosts, the professors of Dudeology. Make sure to check us out, dudeologyshow.com, at Dudeology Show on your socials, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Welcome to the Dudeology Studios with your professors of Dudeology, B, kicking mad wisdom of dudism, money, and Chris, what you want, I get so funny with the money that you flaunt. Before we get any further, take a moment and click on subscribe. Then share us on your socials, and once you do that, you have done your part in advancing the movement. That is the effort to encourage inspired dudes to be better and do great things, ultimately making the world a better place.
Thank you, Brandon. So
you're welcome, Chris.
That was very regal of you. It's a little bit different than I'm used to, but very regal.
It's a little subdued. I just thought I'd try something, and because we have our esteemed guest in the studio with us this evening, Robert, or Bob?
It's Century Bob, but we just call him Bob. And I love the apparel he's wearing, the Dudeology Show merch.
It fits across the. He fills it out nicely. Nicely. We'll say that. That is the medium, possibly. But yes, the chesticles makes them pop.
Yeah.
I'm Bob.
And if you're not tuned in on YouTube, you won't be able to see or hear Bob. But just take a quick break from your iTunes and check out YouTube so that you can check out some of this merch and maybe order some. Help out the cause.
Yeah, we'll put the links up there and everything, and it is high quality stuff. I will tell you, those shirts. We were looking at making these shirts. I know you and I went back and forth, and I said, I think we came to the consensus. It's like, listen, if it's a good quality shirt, you're gonna wear it, and you're gonna keep it, and you're gonna wear it over and over, and you're probably gonna buy one. If we've all done those 5K races, whatever, where you get like the crap shirt, and it's like blousey and it's all scratchy, and you end up tossing it. No dice, man. We want to do high quality stuff here at the Dudeology Show.
So get yourself the Tri-Blend tee, and it can be found out there on Teespring. And so I got to go back just for a second, because in almost every intro of our show, Bob can attest to this. You call yourself B Money. What's that all about?
You know, I got stuck at some point, and I had no idea where that came from. So when you have a last name like Mosley, that just becomes your nickname. All growing up, and it was just like Mosley. I guess it's easier to refer to me as Mosley than it was like Brandon. People refer to my dad as Mosley, my brother as Mosley, and my uncle. There's just like, hey, Mosley. And so that just like stuck. And I thought it was, and somewhere B Money at some point was sprinkled in there somewhere, and I can't remember if it was like high school, military, college maybe. A little bit, but it's mostly been just Mosley. Even my wife, like, if I like play like a joke or, throw the laundry all in on everything, white threads together, I'll get Mosley sometimes. And it's just it. So I never really had like a nickname. I had, I had Slim at one point, or Stick or something like that, but they never stuck. They never stuck. It was always just been Mosley. What about you? Any? You ever have any nicknames? Name like Gambino, though.
They just go with Gambino, right? My last name, most people would just call me by my last name. There's a lot of Chris's out there in the world, and Gambino, with its ties to the Italian, mob. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen the show on Netflix, Fear City, it's about the Italian mob and the Rico cases. It's actually pretty interesting to watch. So check that out. Just watch that this week. But yeah, I have a nickname in my workout group, Bada Bing. Some of you know me as Bada Bing. Of course, again, that ties to the Sopranos show, the club that Tony Soprano used to like to hang out at. But, one of my favorite topics on nicknames was from Seinfeld, when George gave himself the nickname T-Bone, in a meeting.
It's a great show.
You're going to start calling me T-Bone.
That's such a great show.
It really is. I miss it. And I'll still watch old episodes and fall asleep to.
And that always makes me think of like, what's got to go in your mind when you're like, because nicknames what makes them, I don't say the allure, but what makes them authentic is that you don't give it to yourself.
Right.
But if I show up and be like, this is now my nickname, And I know that Seinfeld and they're making comedy out of it. It's fun, but I bet you there's people out there that have given themselves their own nickname. And if you know somebody that's given themselves like their own nickname and just kind of passed it off, it's like, oh, I've always been referred to as T-Bone or Jack Cash or whatever kind of nickname you have. You got to send them in, and we got to figure out a way to like uncover that.
Yeah.
Maybe have them on the show and try to uncover that story a little bit, because I think that's borderline like
you might have to lose your man card.
Yeah, at least suspension for maybe and a week or so. That's kind of weak. That's pretty weak stuff. Yeah. It is.
And you should definitely rename that dude with probably the worst name that you can think of, because ultimately the worst nickname that your bros give you is generally the most endearing.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of stolen valor there, huh? Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm taking like a nickname, and like people have always called me.
I think I know a guy. Yeah. I think I know a guy. Remember Legal Bill?
No way.
You know how he works.
His real name's Legal.
Yeah, exactly. I think
we're not gonna get any. We're not getting into anything with any lawyers right now. Okay, so we have to take that off air. But if you know anybody who has nicknamed themselves, let us know. You can send us a message on the DL, and we'll
tag them in a social media post to the Dudeology Show.
Mm-hmm. I tell you what is legit, and I wanted to follow up with this. Going back to we have folks that bring gear. I don't know what Bob brought us. His piece of killer gear, I think, is the Dudeology Show shirt. But we have people bring in awesome stuff and killer gear, and a couple pieces. What we like to do before we kind of put the Dudeology Show stamp of approval on it is field test it for ourselves. So there are a couple pieces that I was able to field test over the last couple weeks, and I can tell you that they do meet the stamp of approval. So the first one on episode 4. Health Hacks with Dr. Danny.
We're going to get this right.
Montero. Okay, we got that one. We got that episode 4, Health Hacks with Danny Montero. He brought in the Bravo Sierra.
Sierra Bravo.
Sierra Bravo. Yeah. See, I
think it's Sierra Bravo. Sierra Bravo. But I'm always correcting you on the show.
Wipes. I think it's Bravo Sierra.
Might be.
Yeah, I think it's Bravo Sierra.
I got it.
Because I remember BS being like, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
The Bravo Sierra wipes. So first of all, the company's awesome. The company, it's like, I was listening the other day to one of a guy that works as like consulting with them, and basically it's all a bunch of either a bunch of veterans or a bunch of Ivy League guys, and they just got together. And they do this really cool company. 5% of all the proceeds go to back to veterans or veterans' families in some sort of like supporting charity. Yeah, charity work. So which is super cool. The great thing though is that they work. I used the Bravo Sierra body wipes. I was in Manitou Springs, Colorado, and been hiking in the morning, and was just stepping into the Manitou Springs Brewery, which is the shirt right here.
Yeah, you have to tell us more about that.
Snagged a shirt right here, and I, wasn't feeling. I didn't want to like destroy the people sitting around me, right? With just the man's funk from hiking and sweating and get all nasty. So I busted out the wipes, the Bravo Sierra wipes, and did the little field expedient shower, and it was awesome, man.
I also tested those out after a workout. I thought they were great. They're like antibacterial. It's about the size of a towelette. Yeah. So bigger than just your normal baby wipe, and enough to really kind of get the arms, the legs, maybe under the shirt a little bit, get some of that funk off of you. Yeah.
Keep them in the kit, and they're like I said, they're in a pinch. They work. So they're really cool. I haven't tried any of their other stuff, but we'll definitely give that the Dudeology Show stamp of approval.
And it is BravoSierra.com.
There you go, BravoSierra.com.
Don't do what I do and mix it up and get dyslexic with it. Right.
There may be a SierraBravo.com too, but it may take you to a site that you don't want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff Hartman, making money for dudes. Yeah. What was it? 5, 6.
I think
5-ish. Yeah. So he brought in like 8 things. Yeah. And it's going to take us a while to motor through the bottom of those. But something he did bring in is he brought in a pair of Costa Del Mar sunglasses. And historically, Costa Del Mar are great for sport fishing, but just great for the polarization quality is good. And what's always helped them stand apart is their repair warranty. So things break on them, you send them back, they fix them. So I had a pair, and I've had a pair since 2009. And some little like rubber nose piece kind of got damaged on it, so I sent it back. And when I'm sending it back, it sends me the label to print out. Well, I didn't realize that they had been purchased by a company called Luxottica, which I guess is like a really big sunglass, like world's biggest sunglass maker. And you may fact check if they're the world's biggest, but they're pretty darn big. And I'm not sending them back to Daytona Beach anymore with the little mom and pop Costa repair shop is. I'm sending them to someplace in like Atlanta, I think, Metro Atlanta. And I'm like, you know what? This is gonna suck. I bet you that they're not gonna fix them. They're probably gonna like give me some kind of like BS, like, oh, we couldn't repair your glasses, but here's 10% off your next purchase of next time you throw down $200 on a pair of glasses. And I'm just thinking, so I'm ready, and they're like, we're shipping them back. Or here's what I thought they were gonna do. They were gonna like just fix like a little bit and still leave, because there are several things wrong with these glasses. And I get them back Monday. And I open the package, and sure as shit, dude, there's a brand new pair of Costa Del Mars. And so my faith was restored. Right? So I'm eating my words here. In my mind, I was thinking one thing, that, they're not going to honor this because they've been purchased by this large organization. It's probably going to be a cost cutting, all the other things. And no, they did. They still honored that. So I will say, I bought my first pair of Costa Del Mars in 2009, and since then they've been replaced 4 times. So the per use, I look at things from a per use standpoint. Yeah. Right. Whether the
10
cost,
years, 11 years.
11 years. I think they were like, they weren't cheap. They were actually a gift, but they were probably like
a couple hundred.
Yeah, like $160 to $200. But if I look at the per use that I get out of things, do you ever do that? You look at maybe purchase,
cost
like,
benefit.
Every time I use it. So every time I use something, the cost goes down, right? If you look at it from a per use standpoint. But so those are the 2 things that before we get into any of the other stuff tonight that I.
So you've done the reverse rule of 72 on sunglasses.
I basically have done the. Yes. Would that be the rule of 27?
I don't know, but you've gotten 11 years of value out of a maybe $200 pair of sunglasses, and that's remarkable. First of all, that you didn't lose them in 11 years. And that you also replaced them 4 times. And
that's what you replaced. So really, if you looked at the replacement of 4 times, like you said, let's round down and say 154, so $600 worth of glasses, then you could even extrapolate that information. We need maybe to have Jeff on, maybe to crunch these numbers, but
we'll run it by him.
He's more like a conceptual guy on the right.
Yeah.
We did get a lot last time. That was a great episode, and it was awesome. Just the one we did last time about kind of reminiscing and looking back on the episodes we've done. We had a lot of questions that would come in. We made a reference to the Lost episode, or episode 1. And looking back on that was our first episode. And so the folks that don't know, and you probably started listening at episode 2 because that's the one that's available on like iTunes and Spotify, GooglePlay, iHeartRadio. It was Chris and I in front of a camera, kind of sitting like it was like kind of awkward, like side by side. And I don't think we had any. We were using, I believe. Did we have a microphone? We didn't have
no microphone, no headphones, a GoPro. I think that's about it. But there's something to that. There's some nostalgic to it. Like, we don't like to go into the vault and rewatch it very often. But what it shows me is that we had an idea, and we said, we've sat on a lot of good ideas in the past in our life. We're just going to get out there and crank this episode out and see what happens. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, I definitely felt ill prepared for that episode, but it was kind of like, let's do it and see what happens. And then we asked for some feedback, and we're fortunate enough to have be surrounded by peers and by some people that would give us really good feedback, because people are gonna be like, oh yeah, it was great, and then oh God, what are they doing, or that was terrible, or oh my gosh, my ears are bleeding, I can't do this. We had a couple really good pieces of feedback,
and I think you got to be open to that kind of feedback, especially when you're starting a new project, because you want to fail fast and forward, right? So I think in doing that, we learned some things. We needed better audio. We needed better topics. We probably needed a guest or 2. Mm-hmm. But we got out there and we did it, and we took the feedback that we got as constructive, mm-hmm. and we're able to make some modifications, which it's brought us to where we are today, which is, I think, a podcast that's getting better. We're not where we're ultimately going to be in a year or 2 years, but we're getting better, and we appreciate all of our listeners and our subscribers ticking up.
Yeah, and it's the trajectory, and it's like most things in life. Personally, I don't think you should ever be like arrived. I think you should. I think if you're on the right trajectory, or maybe you need to change something, that's the thing. But for any part of your life, like you're ever going to sit down and be like, I'm finally an excellent father, or I'm finally kick ass as a husband enough that I'm going to stop getting better at that, or stop pursuing things, or I'm now in such great shape that I have achieved. No, it's kind of like a constant strive and drive, and it's like kind of like you're molding yourself a little bit, and that's what I feel about this. And that's like the journey truly is like that growth process. It's kind of fun, man.
Talking about growth, when John Richardson came on and talked about the growth mindset, I think our mindset was we don't know how to do a podcast yet, but we're going to give it our best shot. And I think transitioning even into this episode where it's just you and me and Bob over here wearing a Dudeology shirt, shameless plug, with no arms. Tune into YouTube to see this setup. But, we kind of get a mulligan, right? Tonight we get a redo on episode 1, if you will, where it's just you and I, and, with all the lockdown and quarantine going on, we get to talk about some awesome stuff on this episode. I know you've been crushing your summer reading list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so give us some recommendations on a book or two that you've been reading since we've kind of had a little bit more time to stay indoors and quarantine.
Absolutely. And that's one of those good things. And back to that point, if you can find episode 1, it was like, Brandon, grab 3 things around your house and come talk about them. So instead of grabbing pieces of gear, I said, hey, we're going to kind of redo that same model. And really where this came from is we had, we talked about adaptability and overcoming, and I think the corporate word is like pivoting, if you want to use that word. We had something lined up, and there was kind of through a turn of events that guest wasn't able to make it. And we said, hey, what do we got? We're scheduled. Let's not waste this precious studio time that we have scheduled, because we got to get after what we can. And so we just said, hey, we're gonna revisit it. And I thought, well, I've been reading some stuff, and there's some great knowledge in some of the books I've been reading. I'd love to share, and definitely encourage folks to go buy some of these books, because they're good stuff. The first series is, I'll kind of break it. I'm kind of I like to oscillate between like fiction and nonfiction, and there's a lot of fiction. If you look back from, I guess probably like right after kind of the invasion of Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom, so probably like 03 to 05, just kind of this new genre of I don't know if you want to call it like political fiction. I don't know if that's the right term, or like action, but it used to just be like Tom Clancy. Yeah. And you would read Tom Clancy books, and I love Tom Clancy, but half the Tom Clancy book was like specs about, Patriot missiles or F-16s or whatever he was talking about. And then there kind of came this like other genre, which a lot of great authors in there, and a lot of great kind of characters, but like this, Mark Greaney, Alex Berenson, the late Vince Flynn. They just made a movie on Netflix, one of his books, the Mitch Rapp series. So there's a lot of guys that develop these characters. And I came across one just really, truly by, I'll read a book on Amazon, and if you ever go to look at a review on Amazon and type the title in there, it'll say, if you like that, try other books. And it's not just by that author. It could be like kind of like the genre type thing. So one of these guys I came across, this is about probably about a year ago, was a guy named Jack Carr. And he wrote a book called The Terminal List. And I'm not going to spoil the book, but if you want to read a book that's fiction if you want to read a book about Navy SEALs, you should probably buy a book written by a Navy SEAL. So Jack was a former Navy SEAL, and he's kind of tight with like Jocko and kind of that community. And he's just got he's got a great story. he just came out with this second book, True Believer, about 6 months ago that I just finished. Haven't started his third one, Savage Son, yet, but they are just phenomenal. Just the character, and then he goes into some detail about the kit and the gear, and you can tell you're reading a book written by somebody who's probably done similar activities.
Right.
At some point,
been there.
Yeah. At some point in his career, and then and you check him out at Jack Carr USA on Instagram. And he's just got some cool.
Yeah.
You listen to him on podcasts and kind of what you can tell that he's authentic, and he just works hard at his craft.
Yeah.
I think the thing for me about reading books is it's not necessarily always about the content; it's about the storyteller. And I just think if you think back of like as human beings, how many stories probably never got passed along when we were doing oral history? How many stories never got passed along because the storyteller sucked, maybe? And they were like, wow, that's terrible. We're never going to retell that story to our grandkids sitting around the campfire in the cave or whatever. So anyway, do you ever think about that? Like, like the oral history of
I've tried telling stories to my kids, bedtime stories, and I'm terrible at it, by the way. But yeah, you
stick to making cool videos on YouTube,
right?
Then, right? What's that?
You don't have that time where you're sitting around the campfire anymore, just listening to, a story about your dad and his heyday, or what he did in the military. My dad served in the Army, and it's kind of a generational thing that's been lost over the years with technology and the just attention spans being next to nothing anymore, and just an individualistic type culture. And I think a lot of times as men, we fall in to that trap of it's all about me, and we're not investing in others. We're not passing down good little nuggets of information to our friends and our families because we're keeping it all for ourselves. And I love the fact I haven't read any of Jack Carr's books yet, but it's definitely on my list to get to. I'm still in the nonfiction genre, reading about, I like military history and those types of books as well. But definitely interested. Now, is Jack Carr his real name? I feel like that's a cool name.
It is a cool name. If it's not, he's done a masterful job on creating that as his new identity. And like I said, if you follow him at all on the social, he just seems like a really genuine guy, and he's been on like Rogan and Jocko, and you just hear him talk, and so he seems like a legit dude. Again, if he wasn't on that wasn't his real name, I would be surprised. Or I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, people want
little anonymity.
A little bit of a personal kind of keep my personal life separate from from all the other things that I have going on.
Now I'm wondering if he's writing fiction books, if he still has to run the script by the Department of Defense.
Yeah. So that's a cool thing. So this is, I'm glad you brought that up. It would have totally So a lot of his books, you'll be reading them and there's redacted stuff in there. Now, I'll say you can figure like you can look and say, okay, I think that probably meant this location, right? But he doesn't. And he actually talked about that on an interview he did, and I'll need to go back and kind of maybe reference or link to it. He talked about that process.
Okay.
And again, whether he agreed with that process or not, and really some of his teammates when he was on active duty that maybe didn't follow that process and ended up like hurting them, would publish a book and they didn't follow that process, and so they ended up having to like basically pay back like all the revenue that they received from that book in like legal fees and stuff. So it's good, but there will be like a little black redacted kind of thing, and it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat to see that.
So Jack Carr, 3 books out there: suspense, thriller, military, just good all around storytelling.
Yeah, follows the same character too, so it's kind of neat. So it's a trilogy around this central character, and follows that character throughout, which is kind of neat. He makes some cool reference to. He's a big Land Cruiser guy, so there's like cruisers or coffee or certain scopes that he in the characters. So it's a neat. It's definitely entertaining. You'll zip right through all of them. We'll do a link where to find me. Obviously Amazon. Check them out at Jack Carr USA. Great series again. Terminalist, True Believer, and Savage Son. I believe Amazon Prime picked up the series with starring Chris Pratt as the.
It's like the next Jack Ryan character.
Yeah, but it's like a little more gritty, like a little more.
Jack Ryan was formerly Jim from The Office.
Exactly. So there's only like I guess you can only take him so serious.
Right.
You can only take him so serious before you're thinking like, is he just gonna play? Is this all just a prank?
But I feel like wasn't Chris Pratt like Parks and Rec?
He was.
It's still like the same guy.
It was, and even his character, he had the band Mouse Rat in Parks and Rec. But even Chris Pratt's character in the Marvel, the Marvel movies, I guess all of them. He was kind of goofy characters.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it'll be interesting to see Chris Pratt how he plays that character in this Jack Carr series, to see if he's serious or he just brings his own like mix to it, brings his own spin on it. But on the nonfiction side, there's a book I came across. This book is you familiar with Matt Best?
I am. I follow him on Instagram, and I'm a big fan of his coffee.
Yeah, Black Rifle Coffee.
Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Yeah.
Not a sponsor, by the way.
Not a sponsor, but we love their product.
Yeah, we do.
We love their product. We love the work they're doing, too. I think they set out to hire, 10,000 veterans over the course of a certain period of time a few years back, or something. There was some effect of that, or it was 5,000, maybe. You'll have to fact check that.
I've loved everything they've ever put out. So if you're on YouTube watching Dudeology Show, the next videos that you should type in are Black Rifle Coffee Company videos. And they are just hilarious. But these guys are putting out some good content, some good coffee, and Brandon's going to tell us about a good book that Matt Best just wrote. Yeah, and this is a real. Again, I'm like I said, it's not just always about the content. It's about like how is that content delivered. And this book is delivered. I first kind of read the synopsis on the back cover, and I'm just going to read it. And what I'll do is I'll read a couple excerpts, and we can discuss them. I'm not going to give. Really any of the meat away from it, because I definitely want you to go buy the book, because it's definitely worth your $19 or whatever it runs. But Matt writes on the back, Matt Best writes, as I continued to make videos, my goal was to speak to people like me, people who appreciated the gratitude but had no use for the pity, who did not need thanks for their service because they were more thankful for it than anyone could imagine. They were grateful for the chance to serve. I wanted to reflect the reality back to them so they would know that they weren't crazy for not being crazy. I also wanted any veterans and current active military who might be struggling to know that it was okay to laugh in the face of the horrors of war, and that they could be proud of what they'd accomplished, and that there was at least one place online where no one would judge them either. I wanted the world to know that veterans like me, who loved man shit like beards and whiskey and guns and hot chicks and American flag bikinis, weren't ticking time bombs waiting to explode. We were normal people who just so happened to have gone through some extraordinary experience and come out the other side proud of our accomplishments, grateful for our brothers and sisters, and ready to apply all that experience to the next chapter of our lives in the civilian world and thrive. And I read that and was like, I'm definitely reading that book. There were a lot of things that were in that really kind of spoke to me in some of my experiences. And there is like a when you get like the hey, thanks for your service type thing as a veteran, it kind of makes you feel, and it's not like embarrassed is like the right word, because you're not embarrassed for the service, but you're kind of like, hey, I just like, it's nice to acknowledge it, but like don't make a big deal about it. That's kind of the embarrassed the spotlight's on, and then that's where most people are like, and especially if you just as a public service announcement, you don't thank someone for their service on Memorial Day, because Memorial Day is for people who died in service. So just as a just general just kind of note, it would be more appropriate to pay respect to the folks that didn't make it back is kind of the thing, and it's a kind gesture, but I think sometimes it may be a little misplaced, right? So Veterans Day is a better day, and every other day of the year when you run it to a veteran.
But when Matt talked about that, I was like, okay, that's cool. And there were several things.
Well, real quick before you get into the book, I loved what you read on the back, and I want you to actually hold the book up again so we can look at the title, which is "Thank You for My Service" by Matt Best. So when you see that title at first, you're kind of like, that's interesting. And if you don't know anything about Matt Best, but when you read the back, it really gives some context on, his gratefulness to be able to serve the great country of the United States of America. And it really adds more context to it. But it's certainly an eye-catching title.
Yeah, definitely. And if you watch any of the videos, I mean, they're pretty,
that's his personality.
And this is I think this is why it's such a great story, is because it's entertaining, but it's also woven throughout the entire book is like real stuff that it applies to dudes. Look, it definitely applied to me as a 21, 22-year-old guy who was doing most things charged with testosterone and singularly or dually focused on a couple different things. But he writes in here, and this is one of the things that I kind of wanted to discuss because I thought this really kind of hit home. He writes one thing. He says, now, if only it could recreate the one thing I have missed more than anything, every waking moment of every day since the military left. He talks about the thrill of war. But before that, he writes right here, as an Army Ranger and a redacted contractor. Okay, so I think I'm going to go that CIA on that because I think if you read about it, it's probably CIA contractor. I had the honor and pleasure of spending some of the best years of my life defending what this country stands for. It was a privilege to be part of a military brotherhood that seemed second to none. Silently, what he talks about is silently hunting nature's most formidable opponent while implementing years of training to execute a precision raid. Yes, please. High-fiving some jihadi's face into martyrdom with a suppressed AR-14. That's just a warm slice of freedom pie with an ice-cold scoop of America on the side. Understanding the fragile, ephemeral nature of life and then being the one to snatch it away from some terrorist who hates you, wants to kill you and everyone you care about. It's better than Chick-fil-A, and let's face it, nothing is better than Chick-fil-A. So he talks a lot. I don't want to get too much into into kind of like the next story because it's a pretty interesting story. But he talks about moving around and some older relationships fading into the background. And the one thing that he missed the most was the camaraderie and how he was going to kind of replicate that. Right. And outside of even, I think you take that outside of the military, I mean, my opinion, man, and I'll ask you, is like, I think dudes don't have enough, typically dudes don't have enough community.
Right. I'm gonna go with absolutely on that. And I think whether it's the military, whether it is a sports team that you were on, whether it's just a group of guys you hung out with in high school, you lose that as you get older. As an adult, as you get responsibilities, you're now friends with people at work, then you get married, and now you're friends with your wife's friend's husband or your neighbor, but you're starting to lose that camaraderie that you once had that every man, I believe, really desires and needs. And I feel like it's hard to find that, right? And I think that it's this innate desire of competition, like you said earlier, testosterone, something where you can just, be with the guys and, have commonalities that you can talk about. And I just don't think that's happening enough, as I alluded to earlier, as our society has become much more individualistic and men are on an island and they're purposely doing that, or maybe not purposely doing that, but they're just deep diving into work and being successful and really missing out on the male relationships that they need to have in their life because it really changes things. I know we have a workout group, quick plug for F3 Nation, that we both attend, and it's been life-changing in my life as, approaching 40-year-old male that, was looking for something bigger than myself. Because the more you look and invest internally, I feel like, you start becoming this, internal being, and we were made for relationships, I feel. And so, finding F3 was great because it was this free workout group, camaraderie with a bunch of other dudes that were looking for that missing, thing that they, felt like they needed in their life, and it's been great. But similar, to the military, the organization, is that we work out with is is very much so filling that gap for me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it's about something, and I feel this way is about teams in general.
Yeah.
We say, obviously on this show we always talk about things about dudes because Chris and I, between us, have 84 years of being dudes between us, right, of experience. So that's probably one of the things that we're most eminently qualified to talk about. But I think people in general definitely need community. They were built to do life in community. For some reason it tends to be guys. It's harder for that. But one of those things that you kind of build, and I feel like you build like a stronger even bond, is just doing something that sucks with people, man.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, man. If it's like you're digging ditches, or they're talking about doing maneuvers and stuff, and man, if it's like doing a crappy workout that sucks, and you're running with somebody, whatever it is, do something that sucks, man. Right?
I was listening
with a group of people. And that's going to be freaking awesome.
I was listening to Joe DeCina today, actually, talk about, if you don't know who he is, he's the guy who created Spartan races. And he talks about how it's just human nature to try to avoid being uncomfortable. And I think the reality is you need to be uncomfortable to grow. You're never going to get out of a comfort zone without going outside of it and doing something hard, right? So it's one of those things that men in particular, and I've been instituting in my life, is having the discipline to do something hard every day. Because life is way too easy here in America. Mm-hmm. And people go through hard stuff and struggles. But the struggle is really where you find growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how do you get used to? I think in this other book, not to go too far off topic, but David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. He says, how do you do hard things? You do hard things, right? How do you train yourself to do hard things? You go do some hard things,
right?
It's kind of that mental toughness piece, right? You got to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, comfortable being uncomfortable.
Comfortable being uncomfortable, yeah. And I don't know if that then.
I don't know who said that.
Do you continue to just make yourself uncomfortable once you're to a certain level of comfortable being uncomfortable? Matt kind of continues on through the book, and again, it's woven really nicely. Something else that really kind of stuck out to me. He kind of fast forwards a little bit. This would be at some point in his story when he's talking about being on a college campus, and his feeling, what he felt about this. He said, I wasn't in the real world. I was on a college campus. My immediate concern for these kids, meaning the people that were on campus with them, was completely unwarranted. No one whose path I had crossed so far that afternoon had actually done anything to arouse real concern. And why would it? They all lived in a giant bubble. They'd experienced no danger, no risk, no decisions involving life or death stakes. And the entire system was set up to keep it that way for as long as possible. College wasn't their proving ground. It was their playground, with no sharp edges and no one keeping score. Emotionally, they were lumps of Play-Doh drowning in Purell. Practically, they weren't even that useful. And I think a lot of guys, and this is hard, and this is something that I remember struggling with, like having a little chip on my shoulders of when I got out, being like, say something to me and I'll tell you to pound sand, right? And totally unwarranted, and he kind of addresses that's an internal thing. But I found that I was like, sometimes we as guys, we just have this freaking chip on our shoulders. And I'm like, luckily I have people around me now that'll check me on that and be like, dude, what? But I don't know, man. I think if you just let that go, you just kind of walk around in this where this kind of anger comes from or something. Just rage. You're about to be like raging on people, and you can just like rage. It just kind of builds up, and I don't know. Maybe that's not everyone. Maybe that's just me. When I heard him reading about that, though, it was kind of, it spoke to me a little bit on that thing. Yeah. Are we good? We still recording?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, awesome. Bob. Freaking Bob, dude. You can't take that guy anywhere, man. Can't take that dude anywhere. But yeah, so one of the cool things, and I think it kind of, we'll kind of wrap up about talking about Matt's book here, and things that I was able to garner from. It's a great read. And then I thought about us, and I thought about this show when he talks about kind of one of the first videos that he posted on Facebook called "Champagne Facebook Problems." Was one of his first YouTube.
Okay.
Excuse me, YouTube that he posted on YouTube. He says, "Still, something about the process of coming up with an idea and producing a piece of content with a message that I thought more people needed to hear tapped into a feeling that was bigger than my macho insecurity, a reservoir of creativity within me that I'd unwittingly spent the previous 10 years covering up with muscles, tattoos, body armor, and guns. All it took was the crushing boredom of private military contracting to smash a crack in the facade and allow some of the creativity to vent." So he just went out there and did it. And he recorded this video on working as a military contractor and just kind of sat on it for a little while. And he finally just went out there and did it. So what is it that I'll ask kind of the audience is, what are we waiting for? We just did this, and we're still in the process of doing it and making it happen.
In the process of even getting 100 listeners, 200 listeners.
Yeah, we're almost there though. At least we celebrated something. Maybe after this one we'll definitely celebrate that. Yeah. And he wraps up and he even says, "It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing, business. If you look at the history of any successful company that did well in its early days, but then 1 year later grew like a weed and took over the market share, the people who were there at the beginning will always point to some singular decision to explain the explosive growth. Sometimes it's diversifying product offerings. Sometimes it's changing the branding or the messaging. Sometimes it's pivoting the entire business. Sometimes it's getting rid of the one toxic person. And sometimes it's adding one amazing person. Even in the reality of what had changed was more complicated and multifaceted, people want to zero in on that one thing, almost like a creation myth. If you ask me, meeting Evan Hoffer is what changed the trajectory of our business and really the rest of my life." And that is the founder of Black Rifle Coffee. And then he goes, I don't want to spoil the end of the book, but it's a great read. And again, it will keep you entertained. It'll keep you laughing. It's very colorful, very, very candid. And it's very real. It really strikes to the heart of just, I think, just what a lot of dudes kind of struggle with and finding that kind of passion and purpose about what they want to do with their life.
Well, that is, in your words, some good action, Brandon. So how do you want to wrap this up? What else do you have for us?
Yeah, look, both these books are written by real dudes who are getting after it and pursuing their passion, whether it's writing or clothing and coffee companies, whatever. And hopefully by supporting dudes who are on mission, it will align to with what we're all about here at the Dudeology Show, and that is inspiring dudes to be better and do their part in making the world better. So check both these guys out at Jack Carr USA and at Matt Best Official on Instagram. The books are available on Amazon, and we'll put the link in the show notes. And on behalf of all the Dudeology listeners, thanks to both of these dudes for putting out a solid product, and to all those dudes out there who are on mission and getting it done every single day, have a good one. Thank you for listening to The Dudeology Show, your spot for cool stories, awesome stuff, and killer gear. Make sure to subscribe to us on your favorite listening platform and follow us on social media at Dudeology Show.